man would take his own country to war, use them as cannon fodder in a sense for this mission if he knew that he was never going to be able to join NATO. And in addition to that, we also saw a recent, a note from German Chancellor Scholz. He admitted that at the Munich Security Conference that he had a conversation with Zelensky and pressured him to guarantee Ukraine to neutrality. And Zelensky said he wouldn't. So what do you make of this? Zelensky's celebrated as a hero in the liberal press. I'm curious what your thoughts are on him and how he has handled this situation, or if he's really had any control over the situation at all.
Well, before we talk about the comedian drag queen who's now become president of Ukraine, which is a story for the ages, frankly. I mean, Hollywood couldn't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable. We ought to stop and go back to Scholz, because Scholz is a tragic figure in my judgment. Because in many ways, when he speaks, he's speaking for most Europeans. And the Europeans haven't figured out that this is driven largely from Washington, what's going on in Ukraine. We've been pushing this envelope for a long time, and it's not in Europe's interest. European interests have not figured prominently in our calculus. All we've done is look carefully at what damage we could do to Russia. Now, that did not happen with President Trump. There were people in his administration, like Pompeo and others, who were very much committed to the same things as Blinken and company. That's a whole nother story. But I can tell you from personal experience with President Trump, he was hard over in his opposition to war, period. He thought that was the dumbest thing that we could possibly do. And unless somebody attacked us directly, he wasn't interested in it. And he particularly saw Russia in a different light, as a potential, not necessarily ally, but certainly as a partner under the right circumstances. Saw no reason for violence or hostility towards Russia. And that was helpful, but unfortunately it was a brief pause, and the underlying drift in the direction of hostility and confrontation continued. And I think now the danger is, the longer this lasts, the greater the possibility is that something terrible will happen to us. And the Europeans, I think, are beginning to figure this out, because this existential issue for Russia in Ukraine becomes more existential every time we involve ourselves with Zelensky, send him more equipment, more support, and urge him to stonewall and fight it out. And the question is, how long do the Russians go before they finally present us with an ultimatum or potentially strike back at us? I don't know. That's why proxy wars are so dangerous, because the proxy is not under control. Who is controlling Zelensky? Do we really control him? Are there other people in Ukraine controlling him? I've had people tell me that there's very little he can do, because if he does anything his backers don't like, he'll be stood up against the wall and shot. I mean, he's got Ukrainians that are very radicalized. And we've seen plenty of evidence for that in this place called Mariupol and elsewhere, where they have shot people that refused to fight, where they wouldn't let civilians leave areas, because they knew that if they let the civilians leave, that the Russians then would take the gloves off and come in after them.